Yeah, yeah. Unashamed, unafraid. I'm trying to walk the walk. Truth on the mic, no shame here, just real talk. Came from the outside, never fit in. Now we tell the story and the healing begins. No front, no mask, just telling the truth. Keep it real, keep it raw, speaking straight from the booth. If you feeling like an outsider, this one's for you.
Welcome to another episode of Unashamed, Unafraid. We are unashamed of sexual addiction recovery and unafraid of coming unto Christ for healing. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm here recording again, which is like one of my favorite things to do.
If you had to guess how many recordings you've co-hosted on since we started this thing, because you've been here a lot longer than I have, how many would you guess?
A lot of them. Probably over 100 of them.
Wow.
So they're in there somewhere. Yeah.
Well, before we get started today, I wanted to check in on recovery. I'll tell you what, it feels like the devil, he just sends his legions after me before every recording. I can go 3-4 weeks clean, sober, and then just have a meltdown week. And that's kind of what the last week looked like, it was really, really difficult for my wife. It hurt her in a way that it hasn't before. But when I relapsed this time, and my heart's just super heavy. My heart's super heavy. I don't like doing that to her.
Yeah.
I feel sad. For a time, I felt a little bit hopeless, at least for the last couple days. I feel like when I woke up this morning, I was feeling a little bit different. But sometimes you just have that darkness in recovery, and the heaviness lasts for a couple days. And then you have to remember, I'm still healing.
Right.
And I'm going to get there.
And if it's a pattern, maybe as we talk to Ryan, he can address that pattern and help you get out of that pattern.
Yeah. Because it does feel like it's very specific. So speaking of Ryan, welcome, Ryan. This is actually a re-recording, much to our chagrin. We've recorded with Ryan from King's Core before.
Did you say chagrin?
Chagrin.
What the frick is chagrin? I've never heard of that in my life.
It means like
dismay. You got it.
I'm an old soul, Chris.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Much to our chagrin, we have to record again. We're happy to have you back on. We lost the first recording due to some technical audio issues, and we're glad to have you back. So welcome, Ryan from King's Core.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me back.
So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so my story is that in middle school, I was exposed to pornography. Some kids at school had printed off some pictures and they shoved them in my face, and I ripped them out of their hands and threw it in the trash and stomped off. It was just knee-jerk reaction, just get that out of my face. But then curiosity got to me, and I came back a couple days later and fished it out of the garbage can. And that started a whole second life of exploring, going down the rabbit hole. And I cycled in and out of addiction for over 15 years. I white knuckled it, got some distance. I thought it would go away when I got married, because then sex and intimacy could actually physically happen, and
it takes over.
Yeah. And
you don't need it anymore.
Go away. The addiction doesn't go away. It just, now you have someone who's really, really close to you all the time that you have to hide even more from. And it was just big rabbit hole. So it all blew up when I got so sick of myself. I wrote a letter to myself, just how much I hated myself for having this struggle. That was when our first child was born. And my wife found that letter, thinking that it was a letter I wrote to myself about hopes and dreams and visions. And so she read it and was devastated. And it's been a long road of trying different things, therapists, different groups, lots of books, lots of trial and error, lots of mindset work, emotional work. And now I've come full circle where I have been clean for over a year. And
what was your favorite thing that you used? You said you read lots of books, did a lot of recovery stuff, like a lot of groups or whatever. What was the favorite thing for you that kind of stood out?
It wasn't a favorite thing because all of it came together as a whole. It's kind of like seeing The Matrix for the first time when Neo's like, oh, like there's this code in the background that's kind of pulling the strings on everything. I could start to see what the universal truths were that were threaded through what the therapist was trying to do, what the groups were trying to do, all these different things. There was a tipping point that was huge when I found my first group that really resonated with me and got me to open up for the first time. I think if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have started the journey of iterating in recovery that led to where I am now.
Love that.
So give us a little more background on what it was like, the journey to find a group like that. Because, and I know this because we've recorded in the past, and you told us a little bit about that, but there's some pain and some frustration going from group to group to group, trying to find one that actually felt safe, trying to find one that actually made you want to connect.
Before I answer that, I want to talk about shoulds, because there's a big difference between I should do something and I'm doing this for me.
Totally.
So for me, what a should is me trying to conform myself to somebody else's rules or standards or expectations of me. Right? I should be more healthy because everybody wants to be healthy and that's what everybody talks about. I should do recovery work. I should this, I should that. If I'm in that mindset of just trying to should myself into doing things, I'm doing it for other people and not myself. And it doesn't work. So when I first started my recovery journey, it was, I should stop viewing pornography because the church tells me not to, or because my wife doesn't, she's emotionally devastated by it. I should this, I should this. And the first start of my journey was her or church leaders, encouraging me or pushing me into groups or towards this person or this person, towards different resources. And I was doing it for them to check off their boxes. My heart wasn't in it. That's a frustrating place to be because I wanted to get over the problem, but I didn't have eyes to see what the problem actually was. Because addiction is not a porn problem per se.
So if those are out there that are shoulding on themselves, stop shoulding on yourself, right? We can go on forever. We can do all sorts of things.
Get the shit out of there, man. I love that frame though. I mean, I love that more than just finding the right group, there's a lens you have to look through in recovery. It's different than going to it for your wife. It's different than doing it for your friends. It's different than doing it because you're worried God's going to be disappointed in you or you're afraid of talking to the bishop one more time. It's because you want to. It's because there's something in it for you, and that kind of switches your purpose, your momentum, your motivation when you go to get help in communities.
And even if you want to do it for yourself, even if you're just tired of how much destruction has come in your wake, you still might not fully understand what recovery means, what it looks like, and what that journey takes you towards. Like for me, for instance, the first time I went to a support group, I thought, well, it's 12 steps, so that's 12 meetings, and then I'm done. I'm cured. I can just go to 12 meetings and not talk to anyone, learn whatever they're talking about, and then I'll just know.
Dude, you are so not alone in that.
I know.
I was like that. My wife was like that. Like so many guys I know are like, hey, we'll go hit 12 steps and good to go.
Yeah, I think when I met Chris, I was on week 7 of my 12 weeks 10 years ago.
So that first group that I went to, small group, maybe 5 guys and me, and those other 5 guys were alcoholics. So the stories that they were telling, the triggers that they would have, they were different from mine.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I couldn't open up about my thing because what if they're all good hunky-dory with like Alcoholics, okay, we can be friends because we have the same thing, but porn, what the heck? What's wrong with you? I didn't want to be put in that position. So I just, I'm not going to talk here.
Totally.
So what changed?
Well, I didn't talk there, and I went to 12 meetings, and then I was done, right? I stubbornly kicked myself out the door and said, I've graduated. And it wasn't until a couple of years later, I went to a different group. This time it was struggling with pornography, all around the same age as me. So the demographics were right. But the people leading that group were not addicts. They were missionaries who were assigned to teach that class. And they didn't feel comfortable letting people open up and share their stories. So it became very much, we are here to gospel at you until you're better, but you guys don't talk to each other. And so
share, but don't share.
Right. I went to a couple of different groups that were like that, which is a big challenge. It wasn't until I got away from like church-sponsored, church-organized groups. I went to a different group, Sexaholics Anonymous, where it just so happened everybody in this group were also members of the church, but they were operating under this other umbrella. And so they just let themselves loose and would just talk openly about anything and everything, which was like the first time I'd heard all these members, they just cuss like sailors when they're in the group. What happens in the group stays in the group, which I personally didn't feel super comfortable with that aspect of it, but the realness and the authenticity, I finally felt like I had a tribe where I actually belonged, which was absolutely critical to go from, I'm in this problem alone, nobody gets me, I'm unlovable, I've been to these other groups where they're just trying to fix me because they see me as broken, to where now these guys see me, they know me because they are me, and I'm not at the bottom trying to look up at what's possible anymore. I'm somewhere in the middle, because there were some guys that had gone off the deep end and had destroyed their marriages and lost their kids or their jobs, or sometimes even got suicidal. They almost lost their lives over this. And by comparison, I was like, oh, I'm not struggling that bad. I'm struggling somewhere in the middle. And so it changed my perspective. I got to recalibrate my relationship with this crazy addiction thing.
And so you were, from when you left the first group, and then you said you didn't go to another group for another couple of years, you were still acting out through the whole time, correct? Or no?
Off and on, white knuckling stints.
When did things actually start to change for you?
So when I found a safe group and I could actually open up about my story and what I was going through on a weekly basis, I dove into the principles and learned a lot of things really quickly and gained some good sobriety quickly. What would happen is I would cycle. I would get really good sobriety, and then I would keep going to group, but then group felt like it was weighing me down because I would see the same guys show up every week, share their stories, but not get better, which was hard for me because I'm like, well, I'm getting better using these principles. And at the same time, my life got really good. My relationship with my wife would bounce back and things would feel so good that she would feel sad that I would be going to group because she wanted to spend more time with me because our relationship was really good. And so there would be times when I'd say, you know what, I'm going to stay home and spend time with my wife instead of going to group because that's depressing and this is fulfilling. And I would break away and not go to group for a while.
What I love about that is because you're looking at that saying, you know what, this is what I need. That you're actually meeting a need. When you're going to a group that isn't fulfilling, find a different group, people. One that you connect with, one that you love to go to. Love that you're like, hey, I just need to spend some time with my wife today. Like, this is important to me. I got to be able to have that. And that's going to keep me more sober than going to the group. And it's okay for people to do that, where some guys, that becomes their religion, that they have to go every single week or all hell is going to break loose, when they're acting out every week anyway. So like, not all hell is going to break loose if you miss a week. It's okay. And then if you're
Yep.
doing something, especially that you're meeting some needs there, dope.
That's fascinating that you say that. I've seen the same thing. Addiction is a solution. It's a solution to a problem. It's the emotion
Right.
and the identity, the shame problem. And yeah, when guys find recovery and they say the group is the new solution, then they'll latch onto it. Like, that's the solution. But the way to get out of addiction long term is to build out your utility belt of lots of different solutions. Get flexible with it. Lots of ways to process emotions, lots of ways to connect with people, lots of ways to show compassion and love for yourself. If you've got a huge repertoire, then you're more resilient. I think that's the word I would use, because you have redundancies, you have contingencies. It's not just the one group.
So that brings up something interesting for me, because I did find a really good group for a long time. I was going to a 12-step that I loved for about 2.5 years. But I found after a while, similar to what you described, I just didn't feel like it was meeting the need that it once was. And so I've stopped. And as you're speaking, Ryan, I'm realizing I'm not really meeting my needs for connection with other men as well as I ought to. I've got 2 close friends, but as far as like actually spending time in a community that's supportive and loving, like I'm kind of missing that. So I'm curious if you maybe could describe to me, or the person who's like me listening, what is it that I'm looking for in a community when either I don't like the community or the current community has exhausted its usefulness? Where do I go?
Good question. So from my experience, there would be times when I'd go to group where I wasn't really sure what I'd get out of it. I felt like I was in a pretty good place. And then I share my story for a few minutes, or, just an emotional challenge that I overcame during the week. I didn't act out, but I had this challenge at, something at work, and I just share how I think through it. And then after the meeting, someone would come up to me inevitably on those times when I felt like I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of this. Someone would come up to me and say, what you shared was huge for me today.
Mm.
Right. So, and that changes the story from I'm broken, I'm unlovable, I'm this, I'm that, to now all of a sudden, my story, my challenge, my struggles are a boon to somebody else. My story is value to somebody else. That's really what the 12th step is all about. Is
Right.
now that I've gone full circle, I have this story. I can use that story for good. And so it's God's way of multiplying the goodness of your recovery, of taking your one person's experience worth of pain and turning it into something helpful for many, many others. You could go back to the same group that didn't feel like it was serving you with the lens of, I'm here to be the light for somebody else. And it could totally change your experience because you're putting on a different hat.
I love that. Maybe it wasn't that the group had exhausted its usefulness, but that it was time for my lens to change, and it never did.
Because your identity and how you saw yourself and what you needed didn't match what you were seeing and feeling in that environment. That's actually why I started the King's Core, because my life got so good. My relationship with my wife, she just said, you're a totally different person. You think differently. I feel different being around you. This has to be shared. There are so many others that need to know what you have learned. And so I went all in and started reaching out to men and coaching them, and have been able to help a handful already. And it just feels good. Christ descended below all things. And because he did that, he now has been able to ascend above all things. It's the hero's journey. If you're familiar with the hero's journey, you got to go down into the pit of despair where you feel hopeless, where you feel alone. When you overcome that and you come out on the other side, the perspective that you have becomes invaluable. So that's my mission, is to convert my story into hope. It was a peeling back onion layers type of a journey. So it starts off with porn is the problem, right? Because I keep viewing it, and that's what everybody says is the bad, immoral, unethical thing. That's the lightning rod that everybody attacks. Porn problem. When I got distance from porn, I found myself having the same type of sneaking, lying, skirting around the truth situation around treats. I would be at work, and this other group at work was having a potluck, and they had chocolate muffins over there, but I wasn't a part of their group. But I'm sitting in my cubicle and I'm eyeing those chocolate muffins for 3 hours. Like, they're not going to eat those chocolate muffins, and I have to pretend like I'm going to go to the bathroom so that I can go over there and sneak a muffin when no one's looking, right? This whole thing. And I realized in that moment that, oh my gosh, that chocolate muffin is porn to me right now. So that was the first time I had seen a clear sign of an addiction transmuting. And I realized, okay, so it's not porn. It's deeper than that. Porn has its problems. Every addictive substance has its own way of damaging your life, right? Porn specifically damages marriages because the female objectification just hurts wives so much. But
Damages identity.
When I saw it go to sugar, I was like, okay, there's something else. That's when I started to deep dive into emotions. It's an emotion problem. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling shame, right? So it's these emotions that are the problem now. When I dug further, I found that it goes a step further. It's actually identity. The core beliefs that I had programmed into my subconscious was that I'm not enough. I don't measure up. And that would lead to anxiety and depression and fear and all these other things. And when I started to focus on identity, everything changed from the bottom up.
You know, I've had that thought many, many times. The first time I clued into that was when I went to Warrior Heart. I was able to process some things and get some things I believed about myself up out of my heart and onto paper and actually realize them for the first time. I began to feel differently. I began to work at recovery differently. Where I find myself now is in a position where I'm like, I see that, I understand that, and I see the tackling shame and digging down into the identity. But every time something big comes up, I can't go back to Warrior Heart now, right? I mean, I could, but that's not necessarily a great maintenance program across your life. You got to find individual tools to kind of help you. I'm curious.
And implement those tools all the time.
And I'm curious what you found as that process started to take place that you also latched onto, that helped you maintain that lifestyle, because you become a different person, but you got to replace it with something. And that's where I'm stuck personally.
This is what I learned to my core that I maintain every day. So your identity is who you see yourself as, but we reinforce our identity constantly by our own self-talk. And if we don't think to question it, if we're not intentional in paying attention to what that self-talk is, we can slide backwards. For me, it all came down to paying attention to the words I'm using to describe my experiences. What are the stories? Everything that happens in our lives could be seen as positive or negative. Two people can have the exact same experience, but have wildly different perceptions of that experience.
Right.
It could be really positive for one person, really negative for another. This person's offended, this person's just fine. And it all comes down to the stories that they're telling themselves. There's a quote from C.S. Lewis that I really, really love. It's, what you see and hear depends a great deal on where you're standing. It also depends on what type of person you are. So who you are, your experiences, your identity, your beliefs about things, all of that creates a filter on what you are seeing and experiencing. And I realized for me, I had trained myself into a really strong filter biased towards interpreting things as anxious inducing in a negative way, or interpreting things as hopeless And it was just a belief because I would tell myself a story of what things meant, and I would never question the story. I would just take it as reality. This was an exercise I started to do that is really powerful. I treat everything that's happening in my life as neutral because it has positive and negative potential. So I write out one worst case scenario that could happen from the thing that just happened. And I'll make it short. Just what is the worst case scenario? What am I afraid of? And then I'll turn around and I'll write 3 to 5 or more positive things that could come out of this current situation. It recalibrates my ability to see the positive and to not assign negative beliefs to things that just keep me cycling and stuff.
Changing your focus, right? Instead of focusing on the negative things, you're changing your focus to focus on the positive.
Right. So like your situation, you're saying Satan is attacking me every time I come up for a podcast recording. You've experienced that. I felt something very similar, right? There are times when I just feel so bogged down. I'm like, why today? And it's when someone needs me to help them spiritually later on that afternoon. It's like, I don't know how that happens, but I've experienced that. And so there are times when I feel really bogged down or really depressed, all these things. And I'll remind myself, I'm probably feeling this because I'm on the verge of doing the most good that I've done in a while. I'm probably on the verge of helping somebody in a really big way. And I just need to endure past this point because I know it's temporary. It always comes in waves and it'll be gone maybe 15 minutes. I just ride the wave just like a trigger, just like anything else.
Do you have any practical mindset shifting tools that you've also used in one-on-one coaching or some of your own, personal recovery?
I just mentioned triggers.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that no one fully explained to me that would catch me off guard. And I think it trips a lot of people up that are going through addiction recovery because they'll learn some good principles, they'll apply them, they'll get good sobriety, and then a trigger will come up out of nowhere at a really inconvenient time when they are emotionally tired and they'll cave, they'll act out.
Right.
So what I found is that the subconscious it's God's supercomputer that he gave each one of us. And its job is to predictively make associations and connections to give us signals that it thinks will help us. So if I had a really negative experience in a certain environment, then my subconscious is going to take in the sights, the sounds, the feel of the place, the tone of voice, the body language of the people I was around, or even the specific people that I was around. It's going to make associations. And so the next time I'm around an environment that my subconscious recognizes as being similar, it'll float up fear, or it'll flow up anxiety or discomfort or something. It'll say, hey, this just a reminder, this situation could lead to a repeat of that horrible experience. But it's just a predictive engine. It's like a Facebook feed that never had its cookies cleared. So it's an algorithm. It's trying to study your life and your past actions, and it'll float up things that it thinks are helpful to you. But if you're trying to consciously move in a completely new direction, then those old programs might not be helpful to you in the moment.
Right.
When I first started my recovery journey, I didn't know what all of those triggers were because I had over 15 years of acting out an addiction. I had used in lots of different environments under lots of different circumstances. And so I had a lot of different associations that I couldn't articulate. Mm-hmm. So when they showed up out of the blue, it was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I'm overwhelmed. And then I'm acting out. If someone had pulled me aside in the beginning and said, just so you know, you have all of these associations that you've made that you don't even know about. They might come up at really weird, inconvenient times. They're just associations. It's just an old memory. It's just a shadow of an experience you've had in the past. You can make a new conscious decision and move on. So at any given point in time, You can make a positive choice, a negative choice, or just make no change at all. If you make no change at all, you're assuming that things will just work itself out. And what I've found is that if I just pretend like it'll work itself out, it doesn't. It will get worse because now I'm not progressing. I'm not intentionally looking at that thing and making a positive choice.
Right.
Which all three of those are all choices.
Yes.
Not doing anything. That's a choice that you make.
They're all choices. They don't feel equivalent in the moment if you're not prepared for them.
Totally.
Because a positive choice feels new and scary. Negative choice can feel familiar, comforting, right? It's all perspective. But again, that's the story that we can tell ourselves.
Totally.
So Ryan, let's dig into a little bit more of the King's core philosophy so our audience can get a feel for how you tackle recovery with men.
I found that there were 4 pillars of development that I was personally weak in. That when I got stronger in all 4 of those areas, my life started to come back together. So the core is an acronym. It's CORE. It's clarity, ownership, resilience, and execution. Clarity is just having a vision of where you're wanting to move your life in. If you don't even have that, then any effort you put in any direction, it's a waste of energy because you're just spinning in circles. Where are you going? You don't know. And with ownership, I had to find all the areas where I had given away ownership. I was not allowing myself to see where I had the power of choice because I was telling myself, like, my mindset or my beliefs, that's childhood trauma. I don't have power over that, but I have power over how I respond to it.
Right. I love ownership.
Yeah. Or my
Love that.
emotions or the language that I use. Like, how do I change my emotions? They just happen. Well, no, there are lots of things you can do to change your emotions, like visualizing yourself feeling joy. Like, what was it like to receive the greatest gift you've ever gotten? Did you see it from a distance, kind of wrapped up, kind of know the shape of it? You anticipated what it might be. And then when you opened it up, did you have memories of everything that you were going to do with that gift, all coming together, all this moment, and you feel all that at once? That's joy. You can envision that in your head and feel joy right now. Just by putting on that hat, telling yourself a story now.
That's a good one because there's the opposite side of the coin, which is there are things that I need to experience and process and learn, pain that's stuck deep in my nervous system, right? And as you're talking that out loud, I think I've spent so much time doing trauma therapy that I've kind of become complacent in that aspect of positive choice in my life. I'm running from the monster so much that I forget what I'm running towards. And there's some ownership, right? I have control. I can make choices. So I love that principle.
So here's a quick reframe. You're calling it a monster.
Yeah.
Using that language gives it power. Or you're saying, I've done all this trauma work and it's still with me. If you're telling the story that there's this angry, ragey monster deep inside you that you've been trying to uproot for years, that's a visual image that's going to make it harder to process the emotions to release it. Language is so powerful.
Love that, man.
And resilience. Resilience is the ability to take hits without being bent out of shape, knocked over, laid flat. And to me, resilience, it's all about building out that expanded utility belt of tools. It's building expanding circles of buffer and safety.
Right.
So yeah, when I first started, it was, I can't be around computers when I'm alone. That's absolute nuclear red zone danger. And then you keep drawing the chalk line further and further and further back as you learn more tools and strategies. Yeah.
Because now you can be on a computer by yourself, correct?
Yeah, I'm in this home alone.
You just have that resilience to be like, I'm safe to be around a computer and be okay.
Yeah. I'm not afraid of myself undermining my own values. And that comes in time. Everybody has to figure that out for themselves over time. I really do not subscribe to the belief that addictions are permanent for life. I really do believe that there is life after addiction.
Totally.
It's like riding a bike. You can always go back to it at any time, but I could walk out the store right now, grab a tree branch, find someone on the street and start beating them with it. That option is available to me. Am I going to do that? Well, no, I know what the consequences of doing that would be, and I don't want those consequences. I don't know if I ever had that desire, but I don't have it now. But it's the same with addiction. You can't evolve to a point where the desire is not there.
So that's resilience. Now we have execution, right?
Execution. And execution is the ability to be consistent and persistent in a course of action, to actually do the work. So every action has a half-life to it. It will decay. You can't just exercise once and become strong. If you exercise once every 2 months consistently, that's consistent, but you're still not going to get growth because it's not frequent enough. So execution, learning about the mindset of how to be persistent, how to show up when motivation is gone or intrinsic desire to do the thing isn't there, but I still show up anyway. That was something that I didn't have. And it affected my ability to find employment or to perform in jobs. It affected how I took care of my body. It affected how I took care of my family. So I knew that I needed to develop that muscle.
What would you say to someone who's like me right now, who feels they're low on execution?
So this is where the pillars start to interact with each other. Is there a resilience issue making you trip yourself up? Are you self-sabotaging? Or is it a clarity issue where you have too many things that you want to do and you're not focused in on the critical few that are the most important to be consistent on that, right? Are your energies diffuse? Are they spread out? Are you even able to be consistent? Or is it an ownership issue? Do you have a blind spot for where you're not controlling your time or making decisions, right? When I work with men, I look at all 4 pillars to see what are the weak links, what are the lever points that will really pull all this together so that they can get traction.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think for me, it's probably a clarity issue. I'd describe it more in detail, but it's really unclear. No, but sorry, that sounded like a joke. I'm being serious. It really is. I'm just not sure. What are the critical things? What are the most 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 things in my life that I really need to pay attention to? I keep getting lost in the minutia, and then the really important things that I'd like to be more persistent and consistent in, like recovery, work, showing up in my relationship. They all become things that I do at 78 or 80%.
Are you familiar with Pareto's law?
80-20 rule?
20% of your effort creates 80% of the results.
Okay.
So that's the critical few that you focus on that will give you the most fulfillment right now.
Right.
Another way to look at it is one big domino. So, dominoes, you set them all up and just one will get the rest to move.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that if I worked on it and focused on it right now would make all of the other problems, concern areas in my life either take care of themselves or become irrelevant to where it's a non-issue? So for me, emotional intelligence was one of those big dominoes. If I develop emotional intelligence, my performance at work will improve. My relationship with my wife and with my kids will improve. That's a one big domino, a meta skill.
Thank you for that insight. I'm gonna have to do some journaling tonight. As we're wrapping up, what are kind of the final thoughts? 2, 3 most important things that you could share.
The stories that you tell yourself are what will make or break it. And the main story that I would start telling myself if I was still struggling, inundated with addiction, is that all emotions are designed by God to help and serve me. Even anxiety, even depression, there's something there, some bit of wisdom that it's trying to tell me. It's not something that I'm supposed to wallow in or beat myself up over or tell myself I'm less than because I'm experiencing that. So if you can do what God does, which is no matter what horrible, awful thing is happening in the world, he can turn it for his benefit. If you can learn how to do that by telling yourself new stories, using different language to describe things, what I have found, it is so much easier to find self-compassion, find patience, and to find deep-seated resilience and stick-to-itiveness with my personal values when I show up for myself in that way. I don't kick myself to the ground and keep on kicking anymore.
Ryan, if someone wants to get in contact with you, where do they go?
I have a men's community on the school platform called the King's Core. My email, it's ryan@kingscore.com. If anybody wants to reach out to me to have a conversation, share their story, I'd love to hear it. I'm very much in the mode of just connecting with as many guys as I can and seeing who I can help.
And what resources do you offer?
So my men's community, I have courses, one on each of the 4 key pillars, and I'm evolving more courses. One is a deep dive on emotional intelligence. One is a deep dive on marriage dynamics and protecting your marriage. I'm going to develop one on parenting soon, on the nuance there of working with your kids. Every helpful resource I can find, I'm distilling it into clear, packaged nuggets with activities, exercises, different things in the community. You can rub shoulders with like-minded guys who are also wanting to develop in every area.
Thanks for being on, Ryan.
Heck yeah, man. We appreciate it for sure.
Ryan Carnahan from King's Core. Love some of his insights. Certainly food for thought for me. Guys, thanks for watching. You can find us on social media at Unashamed Unafraid. Get access to our bonus content and become an outsider on unashamedunafraid.com. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if this was helpful to you, it'll probably be helpful to someone else. So take some time right now and share it with a friend. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, continue to live unashamed.
Yeah.